is really kind of fun because it gives me license to reach out across the IT organization and across the company and bug people. So I have a front row seat as to everything that's going on.
That, like I said, you got a killer job. It's a job everyone should envy that's a technologist, I think. Welcome to Embracing Digital Transformation, where we investigate effective change leveraging people, process, and technology. This is Darren Pulsipher, Chief Solution Architect, author, and most importantly, your host. On today's episode, Inside Intel IT, sharing best practices with special guest Robert Vaughn, Technology Specialist from Intel IT. Robert, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on, Darren.
Hey, today we're going to talk about something really cool, something that Intel does with its IT department. You're part of our IT department, specifically IT at Intel, where we share our best practices with the world, which I think is awesome, by the way. But before we dive into that, Robert, my audience wants to know a little bit more about you and why in the world is Darren talking to Robert Vaughn? Besides he's super cool and an innovator, besides that.
All right. Well, let's say I've been with Intel for quite a few years, for 20 plus years. And I have a very interesting role within Intel IT. Instead of focusing on internal IT projects, I collaborate across the company and across the industry to share the best practices that we have developed for doing the business of IT. So
how do you get it? That is a killer job, Robert. How do you get a job like that?
Well, I think it starts with a real passion for information technology. So I am long-term IT with technical background in programming, systems architecture, systems engineering, and from that, I started to get connected in with the sales teams and with external accounts. And that then connected me into this team called IT at Intel, which is actually part of Intel IT, where there are a variety of senior technologists that are on the team that have found that there is a value to be had for Intel as well as our external customers, as well as for Intel IT to share our best practices. So we do these engagements. I support a lot of discussions with external companies. And what we have found is that the more we share, it benefits us as an IT organization. And maybe the folks that we're sharing with, it'll benefit them also.
No, I love this model. I think it's brilliant because, as you said, we learn just as much as who we're talking to learns because it's an exchange of data. It's not a one-way type of engagement, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So there are, what are there, 9 different categories of best practices that IT at Intel focuses on. Is that right?
Yes. So we have what are called domains. And you'll see the domains at some point. But the domain that I'm responsible for is the AI and data architecture domain. So I'm deep into AI, have a collection of patents related to that. And I spend a lot of time working with folks on basically everything AI, and then extending from that, everything that is IT. But yes, there are 9 domains.
So, but you can talk to each of those domains, or do I need to bring in an expert from each one of those domains to have like an initial conversation with IT at Intel?
Well, in many cases, I do cover all of these different domains. It depends on the nature of the conversation, who the customer is, and what their interests are. So in many cases, I cover everything, which is really kind of fun because it gives me license to reach out across the IT organization and across the company and bug people. So I have a front row seat as to everything that's going on.
That, like I said, you got a killer job. It's a job everyone should envy that's a technologist, I think.
Oh, I think so. I've been on this team for a while, and one of the things I like about it is that one day I can be dealing with client technology. The next day I can be dealing with cloud. The next day I can be dealing with data centers and looking at immersive cooling. The next day I'm dealing with AI. So yes, for somebody who is really passionate about the technology, this gives you access to everything.
Yeah, this is super cool. All right, so let's talk about the 9 domains. Let's start with the first one, IT leadership and strategy. So, what does this really mean?
All right. Well, there are several different parts to talking about IT leadership and strategy. But here, I'll give you a little bit of insight as to how these conversations have manifested over the last 6 months to the last year, where we talk about not so much what we want to just shove out to the industry, but to really find out what our peers in the industry want to talk about. And what we have found is that when talking about IT leadership, it has to do with how you minimize your technical debt. So, say you have a budget and it looks like this. Well, some percentage of your budget is spent on just keeping the lights on, the keep the business running. And then some much smaller part of your budget is and your resources are expended on innovation. Okay. And this is something that we encourage lots of organizations to look at is what is the balance between your run spend versus your innovation spend. And so enabling a greater innovation spend involves digital transformation, involves a lot of, in many cases, very hard decisions about how you want to reduce investment in certain areas and increase investment in other areas. And so that is the key topic that we have found that folks are interested in. They want to do the digital transformation. They want to integrate new capabilities like AI, but all of the organizations that I've spoken to, our peers, they operate with rather fixed budgets, which means
Right.
you have a certain playground that you can operate in. Intel IT is the same. We have a rather fixed budget year over year. So if we want to enable the new, the shiny stuff that we hope will bring great value, it means that we need to really optimize our environment. And so that's where we get to participate in a lot of discussions on balancing out that, and we call it an investment, balancing out the investment for the IT organization. And that involves looking at the governance processes, the budgeting process, finding out what is highest priority to our stakeholders, getting buy-in from across the organization so that we can ultimately, it's about how do we affect change in a positive direction.
So this is really incredible because this includes both strategy and tactics. It sounds like on the leadership, right? How do I prioritize? Do I do outsourcing? Do I do onshoring? Do I all those crazy things that CIOs? Because I was a CIO, I remember going through all this stuff. It sure would have been nice back then if I knew Intel was doing this because I could have called them up and said, I'm in a world of hurt. Can I bounce an idea off of you? This would be the sort
Right.
of thing I could do, right?
And we're free. I mean, I am Intel IT. I'm literally Intel IT. I am not trying to sell anybody anything. Our objective is to have conversations that are really open, that share what our challenges are. I mean, there are lots of things that we have tried running down this particular direction or that direction, and then realizing,
Oh
well,
no. Yeah.
that's not where we should go. So we will share the good learnings, but we'll also share where we have tried something and it just didn't work out for us.
Okay, this is great. I love this concept. Let's go on to the next one, which is workplace of the future. Now, hey, this sounds like Intel's just trying to sell me stuff here a little bit because, hey, Intel, we create the future, right? But this is
Absolutely.
not where that is, right? This is different than you pushing new chips on our customers. So explain what workplace of the future is.
Well, Intel IT supports a workforce of 105,000 or so people. It is huge. It is global. And it is really challenging and incredibly important to make sure that we are arming those employees with the latest technology, from the physical devices of the laptops, the vPro systems that we have, all the way through to the collaboration tools. And I'll tell a little bit of a story. A few years ago, and we do lots of studies of our environment. We collect as much data as we can, and we run studies. And what we found was that there were a unexpected quantity of people who were ordering devices that were more powerful than the ones that we in IT were sharing out through our standard ordering process. So while we were delivering Core i5 systems, we found that a lot of folks were ordering i7 and i9. Well, whenever that happens, these exceptions to the normal process, it creates a lot of churn, and it ends up costing a lot more, much more than just the cost of the device. And it also becomes a representative sampling for other folks who are just going to suffer. And so what we found in the environment was that we were not doing a very good job of aligning personas, the types of users, the categories of users that we have, to the specs of the devices that we were giving out. So the end result of that was a recognition that, first off, we needed to up-level our client device specs, memory, CPU, disk, such that we could reduce these exceptions, these orderings out of team budgets or group budgets, and align that to what folks really needed. So from that, we ended up running a program to find out, how do we collect more data from our environment such that we can have personas that are not just the sort of rigid or the static roadrunner or road warrior, office worker. I guess some of us have become like roadrunners, but like the road warrior, the office worker, the factory worker, that didn't work, because what we also found was that making assumptions about somebody's role did not align to what they might be using. So around the same time, we started to see democratization of data. And from that democratization of data, we found that, well, some people were trying to do analytics on
their laptops,
Excel and everything else, and they were running into problems doing that. So now what we have is a very rich program in place that looks at how to collect data from devices, and also respecting people's privacy, looking more at like CPU and performance
usage patterns and things like that.
So we can continuously refine what those personas are, such that they are no longer static identities, and that enables us to provide a catalog of PC devices that really suit the needs of the employee population.
So not only have you guys done the operations, the day-to-day operations optimization, but you're also looking at future, right? Future workplaces, different ways of working. Intel has a multi-hybrid workplace where we work in the office, at home, on the road. It's all over the place.
Exactly.
So it's pretty complex.
Oh, it is. It is certainly complex. And with that, you mentioned working from home. Well, like everybody's working from home now. And, well, not everybody, but
kind of sort of, yeah.
To a great extent, you can see I'm working from home right now. And that introduces new challenges, like how do we support these devices? Well, we have a philosophy that if somebody's having a device, or they have a device, laptop, and they start to have trouble with it, and then they have to call our service desk, Well, that represents in a way, it's kind of like a failure on the part of IT, that that device is giving trouble, which impacts productivity. It's an aggravation, and they have to spend time talking through troubleshooting and all of that. So,
Right.
so we developed what is called the Virtual Assistant Center to help employees. This runs as an agent on every employee's laptop, and it is able to identify a variety of different problems, from connectivity issues, Wi-Fi issues, security configuration, all of these different things. It's able to identify and work interactively with the user to solve that problem right there in real time without.
Without having to wait for a call desk or anything like that. That's slick. Let's move on. Let's move on from the workplace of the future to what supports that, which is your data center and infrastructure. Because without a data center infrastructure, why would I even have a laptop, right? Why would I have these remote things? I need something behind that, right?
Exactly. And so we talk, like, data center is really kind of like one of our top topics that we talk with external customers about. We have a lot of servers, and oh boy, this is going to be challenging to crunch this topic into just a few minutes. We have somewhere in the neighborhood of 400,000 plus physical servers. These are on-prem servers. So when we talk about cloud, we have a huge cloud. To design exactly, to design the latest generation of Intel processors involves a massive amount of compute, and we run that compute for the design world on-prem, and we also run it very efficiently. But let me touch on efficiency in just a moment. So let me describe our environment, where we have dedicated compute for the four major use cases. So we call our model of data center to be DOME, as in DOME, which is design. So the vast majority of our compute is for our design requirements and our high performance computing side of the house. Then we have a much smaller percentage dedicated to what we call the office applications, the servers that support every
office, right? Yeah,
exactly. And then we have the M for manufacturing. Well, each one of our factories, what we call fabs, has its own dedicated data center. We do that for reasons of both performance and resiliency, putting the compute where it needs to go and configuring it in a manner that allows it to be as stable as possible. And then the final one is our enterprise environment, which covers our enterprise resource planning and so forth, the large applications that make up the environment. We talk a lot about power, cooling, rack design. One of the metrics that we track that is common through the industry related to data centers is PUE, power utilization efficiency. And Darren, I think you and I have talked about that before.
Oh yeah, we have. It's super incredible what we've done.
Oh yes, and this is where we have a good number, which is 1.06 is our PUE, and what that means is that we have, for 100 watts of power coming into the environment, we have 100 of those watts dedicated to compute, and then 0.06 watt dedicated to the environmental requirements
Cooling,
for managing that environment of cooling, and that is a very efficient value to represent our operational capabilities. And so we share a lot about, well, how do we actually do that? Well, it's it's multifactorial. There are many different parts to running our data centers at that level of efficiency. With power, we get into everything from the DC stepping values to how we are running standby power systems, even all the way to hydrogen fuel cells. So there's a lot to take into consideration related just to power. With cooling, well, if I could take you on a tour into one of our data centers, one of your first observations.
I've been on the tour. It's super cool.
Yeah.
The hot aisles, the cold aisles, which are not cold, they're warm.
Exactly. So our and that's one of the observations when we bring a customer into one of our data centers is are we just mixing hot and cold air, because the cold aisle feels really hot, and we run like summertime in Louisiana hot within our data centers. And I mentioned that we do lots of studies across our environment, and that's one of the things that we did was how hot can we actually run our cold aisle such that we can not affect the mean time to failure of the servers that we're running. And it's a huge investment to have 400,000 servers in the environment.
The next domain, which is cloud. So why not, you guys have your own private cloud. Intel has its own private cloud. Do we ever use public cloud? I know the answer.
Yes, we certainly use public cloud. And we operate in a multi-cloud hybrid environment where we have data or cloud brokers, folks within IT that are expert at determining where a workload should be placed, because the cloud is great. The public cloud is easy. You can move workload out there very easily. You can grow that workload, but you have to pay for it. Okay?
Yes, you do.
So, I am IT, and we have our fixed budget, and cloud, it provides a lot of benefit, elastic capabilities and so forth. But if you're not careful, the cost of cloud can start to run away. And that's where we're very careful about where we place workload. In some cases, we will place workload out to the cloud, and then we will bring it back onto, we will repatriate that workload to be on-prem, depending on the various circumstances of that workload.
So it could be cost, it could be criticality of the workload, or private data privacy issues. There's a whole bunch of things that go into that. And we've actually had on the show the guys that started the cloud broker team.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, Dave Shrestha, and I forgot the other guy's name.
Yeah.
It'll come to me later. But we've had them come on the show, and they have gone out to our customers and taught them how to do a cloud broker organization, how to optimize workloads for workload placement for on-prem or in the cloud, and how to have a framework so that I can move workloads around easily.
Right.
That's invaluable information that a lot of organizations are trying to figure out today.
Right. And you also need to look at how do you enable your development teams to build apps to host in whichever environment is best suited for that workload. So we have a rich container strategy, as well as a rich virtualization strategy. We're seeing a lot of shift of interest towards containerization. It is simply the vector by which we are seeing the industry evolve.
Well, and that brings up the next domain. You perfect lead into software and enterprise application development because Intel has learned through, like everyone else, right? Through, it's gone hog wild crazy in application development. And then we put programs in place. And so we've learned through our own experience. So, what sorts of things can our customers learn from our software and enterprise application domain?
Well, within that domain, we cover a variety of topics, but 90% of it, in all honesty, is SAP.
Really?
Yeah, that is the dominant topic within that. So we have run our SAP environment on-prem for quite a few years, and there is a continuous evolution that is taking place in that environment to make it both cost effective as well as to address the requirements of the evolving Intel business environment with like IDM 2.0 and how to support essentially a bifurcation of the organization.
So that you brought up something interesting because a lot of times people think of SAP. I get it up and running. I got a 5-year plan to get all the processes put in there and all the data feeds. And you just said, yeah, but if your business changes, SAP has to change now too, right?
Right.
So it sounds like it's Intel. People can learn from our own experience on continuous improvement and this
Right.
whole gamut that goes with it.
Right. And one of the considerations with that is to for the architecture and design for the SAP environment. Do we outsource it and have somebody else figure that out for us? Or do we skill up and have that capability in-house? And you already know, we have that as a core capability that we have identified critical to Intel's operation. And we have that team as part of Intel IT. So very talented folks that help to run our SAP environment. It gives us agility, and we have folks that have just a keen interest in seeing Intel succeed with what we're doing with enterprise resource planning, extending out through our supply chain.
So that brings up a good question. Would you suggest to every organization that they stand up their own SAP architecture team, or how would you help them make that decision?
Well, I think to a degree, it would depend on the dynamic nature of their business. If it is a company that for the last 100 years has been making, say, pipe fittings, and they have a very well baked supply chain and vendors, and there isn't much change going on in that environment, well, then maybe they're okay to reach out and have a system integrator, a consulting firm, whomever, provide that service. For us, we are changing all the time and trying to evolve the innovative capabilities that come from the business unit. And so that's like a whole other topic within this, which is if you have a dynamic business model, which Intel really is, it is changing all of the time. And with that change, there are ideas, innovative capabilities that business groups, business units want to introduce into the overall process. Then how can we architect our organization such that we can respond to those requests as quickly as possible? Because if you can't respond quickly, then you are hampering the innovative capability of the organization.
I like how you mentioned here, it's not just throwing technology at things. You guys talk about organizational change, process change. These are key aspects to each one of these domains, is what I'm hearing.
Right. And it goes back to leadership, because you might have the smartest folks in the world, But if they are trying to evangelize change through a grassroots program, then without buy-in from leadership, then that's really difficult.
Yeah, that kills you. That kills it. I totally agree.
It
Hey,
is.
Robert, this has been great. I mean, you've given us a lot of really cool information. If someone wants to get engaged with Intel and their IT department, IT at Intel, what do they do? Do they just give Robert a call, or do they go through their sales rep? How does someone get engaged?
Well, the typical way is that somebody who's at an enterprise IT organization reaches out to their Intel sales counterpart. So we have a group called Intel Sales and Marketing Group, SMG. And in many cases with enterprises, there is an Intel SMG account executive that is assigned to that customer. And they can just simply reach out to
them and they'll get you in contact?
Exactly.
Awesome. Robert, this is wonderful. Thank you for coming on the show. I learned so much. There's so much information here. This is going to be wonderful.
Oh, I'm very happy to have joined and talked with you today. We could certainly continue the discussion for many, many more hours.
Yes, we can. Thanks again, Robert.
All right. Thank you, Darren. You have a great day.
Check out part 2 of this interview with Robert, where we discuss the other 4 domains that Intel IT is helping the industry improve. Thank you for listening to Embracing Digital Transformation today. If you enjoyed our podcast, give it 5 stars on your favorite podcasting site or YouTube channel. You can find out more information about Embracing Digital Transformation at embracingdigital.org. Until next time, go out and embrace the digital revolution.